Tonight, we're taking it way back and talking about the mid 2000s reality series Jersey Shore. Was it a harmless entertainment or has it aged like milk in 2022? Then we're talking about The End Is Nigh, a new show about what apocalypse level natural disasters would look like in this day and age, starring the one and only Bill Nye. And finally, we're talking about toxic streamers and their communities. What does toxicity look like in the content creator community? And what can we do about it? This is Did Y'all See That? Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the show. Welcome to Did Y'all See That? I am your host, Ngozi Mai, the Jengu VTuber. Thank you all for tuning in to the show. We have a lot to get through tonight, but first, the rundown. Tonight's episode is yet another pop your culture episode where we'll explore various relevant topics in modern media, and we're just gonna nerd the fuck out, guys. Feel free to comment away throughout the show. I cannot promise that I'll be reading the chat too closely, but I will try. There will be no spoilers tonight, actually. There's going to be no spoilers tonight. Yeah, everything we're talking about is either harmless to talk about, or I mean, it's already been out for a long time, so it's a spoiler free. Did y'all see that, y'all? So yeah, we will not be using the spoiler chat, the spoiler picture. With all that out of the way, folks, let's get started with pop your culture. Ow, you bubs, pop your culture like this. Tell me about it, goes you work that shit. Ow, you bubs, pop your culture like this. Tell me about it, goes you work that shit. All right, welcome to Pop Your Culture. We're going to go ahead and start with our first segment tonight. In case you missed it, in this segment, I'll go over the spark notes of the notable pop culture news from the past week. Let's get started. The John Wick franchise is getting a spin-off, y'all. Ballerina is an upcoming movie starring Ana de Armas. You might know her from Knives Out. She played the maid from Knives Out. And I think I don't think that was her first role, but it felt like her breakout role. She really kicked ass in that role. Ballerina follows a ballet dancer that is seeking revenge for loved ones who were taken from her. Sound familiar, John Wick fans? She's no ordinary dancer, though. She's part of the Ruska Roma, a troupe of dancers and assassins led by the director, who is played by the great and gorgeous Angelica Huston. Y'all, if you've seen John Wick 3, Chapter 3 Parabellum, you know who I'm talking about. Because we last saw the director being stabbed through both of her hands as punishment because she was helping John, who had been excommunicated. So I feel like she was pretty pissed about that. I'm pretty excited to see where this movie goes. There's no actual details on when it's coming out, especially considering John Wick Chapter 4 got delayed. It was supposed to come out in May of this year, and now it's coming out next March. I don't think it'll get delayed again, though. So I'm excited to see more updates coming from this, and honestly, more spin-offs, because the John Wick universe is actually pretty fascinating. So it would be cool to see some more spin-offs coming from that. Dead Island 2 finally has a release date, guys. Fans of the franchise have been waiting for 8 years for any word on the much anticipated sequel to the first-person open-world zombie game. Y'all, Dead Island 2 was first announced back in 2014. That was 8 years ago at 8/3, with the expected release date of the following spring. But we got a whole trailer and everything. Like, Jack Black was in the trailer, so there was like so much hype for this. But the game got put in development hell, popping from studio to studio to studio over the past 8 years. Thankfully, it appears that it's finally in a ready state. It's coming out next spring. We got 2 trailers last week. One of the trailers was like a cinematic trailer that like kind of showed a new character that seems to be like infected with the zombie virus, but isn't a zombie himself. So I'm thinking, oh, immunity maybe, I don't know. And then we also got another trailer on the gameplay, seeing like some of the weapons that we're going to be using, as well as some other characters in the story, and it looks really fucking cool. Unfortunately, I think Jack Black is gone. I don't think Jack Black is attached to the project anymore, so I don't know what that whole thing was, but very fucking stoked. I loved Dead Island 1 and Riptide. Fucked with those games hard. Very excited for this. Ooh, guys, there's going to be a Les Grossman movie. So, for those that don't know, Les Grossman is a character from the 2008 action comedy Tropic Thunder, which was extremely stupid and extremely funny. You might remember this if you're a fan of that movie. You probably remember this character who was played by Tom Cruise. At the time, it was like kind of a big deal because Tom Cruise is this like big serious action actor, and then he's coming onto this dumbass comedy movie and playing this outrageous character. Les Grossman is a ruthless, vulgar, and funny as hell bigwig studio exec producing the Tropic Thunder movie within a movie. So that's what the movie was like a movie that was in a movie. He basically was supposed to like be satirizing like big wig studio execs in Hollywood being like all for the money and all for like making money from the movie. They don't give a fuck about the actors or anything like that. And it showed. Watch the movie, guys. If you've never seen Tropic Thunder, please go watch that movie. It's really fucking stupid and funny. We only got a small amount of him in that movie, so it's really cool that he's actually going to get a whole spin-off. I think it looks like Ben Stiller, Robert Downey Jr., and Matthew McConaughey are all in talks for reprising their roles. So yeah, no more details other than that, but I was very excited to see that bit of news coming out this week. Some of you might be too young to know this one, but Killer Clowns from Outer Space is getting a video game. The game is described as an asymmetrical horror hide and seek style game. Think like Dead by Daylight type of game, where 1 to 3 players get to be the clowns, who are these like crazy, scary looking clowns that are straight up trying to just murder humans and take over the fucking world with clown and circus themed weapons. It's outrageous. There's a movie based on this. It's amazing. And then they hunt up to 7 human players that are trying to fight back with weapons and supplies that they find around the world. And the maps are like procedurally generated and different every time, which I thought was pretty cool. The game's going to have PvPvE elements, objectives, class systems. It's also going to be kind of like a battle royale a little bit. Like they think like Dead by Daylight meets a battle royale. It's a really fascinating idea. I've never really been into that style of game myself. I love playing it when I play it, but like I don't know, it's something that you need to get a lot of people together to play. Anyway, the concept of Killer Clowns from Outer Space comes from a B movie, a cult classic B movie from the 80s. That is exactly what it sounds. It's killer clowns that were aliens that came from space to kill everybody. And it rocks. If you haven't seen that movie, go fucking watch it. It's fucking awesome. But yeah, this is an interesting game. I'll probably play this at some point. You may have heard the name Dan Schneider in the news for the past few weeks, and it's likely due to the recent unapologetically blunt memoir from iCarly's Jeanette McCurdy, where she recounts the trauma she experienced in her time working at Nickelodeon. She speaks on the extremely predatory behavior that the former exec displayed towards her and others, actually, and it kind of prompted other former child stars from Nickelodeon to speak up as well. There's a actress that was in Victorious. I never really watched that show when I was younger, but one of the actresses in Victorious actually like came out recently saying she protested multiple times at scenes that they made the female actors do that they felt were inappropriate for children, and they still aired it anyway. So this sparked a lot of other stars to speak out too, including who is pictured here. Her name is Alexa Nicholas. I remember, yeah. She's from Zoe 101, and she actually led a protest down in the Nickelodeon headquarters this last week. So Schneider actually left Nickelodeon like kind of abruptly back in 2018 because of all of these fucking allegations that kept coming out. And it's after the Me Too movement, so like I guess Nickelodeon couldn't sweep it under the carpet anymore. But I'm still thankful that these former child stars are finally feeling safe and empowered enough to speak up on their experiences, because I think it will help empower others that are maybe experiencing those things right now. Hollywood is a really predatory place. Especially for young people. So it's really great that we're normalizing not being okay with it. Because for a long time in Hollywood, they wouldn't say they're okay with it, but they would just like act like it's not happening and just chalk it up to that's Hollywood, folks. And I'm really glad that we're exiting that phase of Hollywood. So Netflix is developing a live-action adaptation of BioShock with the script that's written by Michael Green. Michael Green has written other works such as Logan, the Wolverine movie, the black and white Wolverine movie, Blade Runner 2049, and multiple episodes of the gritty FX fantasy drama American Gods. So I actually think that I trust him as a writer to be able to actually capture the tone pretty well, considering his previous works. He's got like a excuse me, he's got a lot of experience writing for very deep, rich lore and very dark worlds, which Bioshock and Rapture very much is. Not much is known about the story, but I've always thought about that. I knew this was coming. I knew that they were going to make a Bioshock movie. And for a long time, I've held the belief that it's fine that they do that, but they should not rehash the plot of the first game. Bioshock 1 is one of the best games ever made, in my opinion. It is front to back, the whole story, everything about it is just premium fucking video game playing experience in my life, and it'll stick with me for the rest of my life. They should not try to recreate that, because if they do it, and if they don't do it perfectly, which they probably won't, it's going to tarnish the game. It's going to tarnish how people feel about it, you know? So in my opinion, if they're going to make a series based on the franchise, they should pick one of the many stories that are in the background of the game. If you've played Bioshock games, you know that there are audio takes, audio diaries spread throughout the entire world. So you can pick them up and you can listen to a recount from a character that is probably dead at the point that you hear it. But it just kind of builds on the super rich, super character-driven world that is in Rapture. And it's all in the past. Like you're playing the main character, just listening to all of the stuff that's happened, and gives you so much context and so much backstory to everything that's happening. And honestly, if you play Bioshock, you can just like totally ignore those and still love the game. But I think that richness is what makes it so thick with lore. So if they're gonna do it, if they're gonna make a Bioshock movie, I think they should pull from one of those Vinny stories. You got the mad scientist Suchong that like kidnapped little orphan girls and turned them into atom obsessed zombies. You got the same guy who would take homeless people off the street and turn them into big daddies. You have like a criminal mastermind named Fontaine that's leading an uprising of the middle class in Rapture, but it turns out he's also a conniving con man, and all he's trying to do is just take over Rapture for himself. That's a story. That's a story that did not play out in the game, but like we could see that thing. Or even like a prequel about Andrew Ryan, about his like life before he created Rapture and why he created this lawless city in his own image. Like it's such a rich world, and I think the opportunity would be wasted if they try to just recreate the originals game. So rant over. That's not even touching on what happens in Bioshock Infinite. That's like a whole nother thing, y'all. Like, all I'm saying is there is a lot to tap into here. I hope they do it right. Ooh, and finally, a surprise trailer for Weird, the Al Yankovic story came out this week, and it was everything we wanted and more, folks. This is going to be a loose biopic of the man himself, and it's a film that boasts a really star-studded cast led by Daniel Radcliffe, as the titular funny guy. It's really great to see. I actually saw somebody on Twitter the other day, like, really appreciating Daniel Radcliffe as a former child star, like not falling into that franchise rut. Like it feels like a lot of like child stars and people that are like stuck with franchises, they just kind of stay with it, you know, and it'll make you a lot of money, but then it'll make it so that you're kind of typecast as that. And when when Daniel Radcliffe left the Harry Potter franchise, he just decided to just take on projects that were weird. You know, think of all the movies that Daniel Radcliffe has been in the last 10 years. They're weird fucking movies, but they're great, you know, and I really admire him for that. So it's great that he has this role. I think he's going to fucking kill it. This film is expected to be super absurd and very exaggerated, even like telling straight up lies. But it's going to be like a biopic. It's going to talk about how Al started his interest playing the accordion and how he got discovered and how he rose to fame making music that he loves, never selling out, always making music that he loves. Anyway, I think this movie is going to be fantastic. I don't like concerts. That's something about me that is a little weird considering I love music. I hate concerts, but I went to an Al Yankovic concert when he did the string orchestra tour, and that was one of the best. That was like the best concert experience I've ever experienced in my life. He is such a talented person, and I'm really excited to see his movie. And that, folks, is In Case You Missed It. Let's move on to the next segment tonight, Throw It Back. In this segment, we will take a look at an old TV show, movie, or game and assess whether it still holds up all these years later. Is it still great or cringy as fuck? Let's find out. And this month's Throw It Back contender is Jersey Shore. I have been rewatching all of Jersey Shore for the last 2 months, y'all. I'm actually in like almost done with season six. I didn't finish season six, but let's just say I think I've watched enough of the show to come to a fair verdict here. So let's get right into it. Let's talk about the cast. So from left to right, pictured here, you start with Mike the Situation, who is like your, I guess, like ideal gym bro macho dude who's like who thinks he's ways like he's ripped and stuff, and he thinks he's so hot, and he thinks he's the leader of the group. He's just like a very type A type of fucking character, and he sucks. By the way, I'm gonna say character a lot because something that I noticed, and I didn't notice this. I watched this for the first time back when I was around like 14 or 15 years old, and I loved the show back then. But I didn't realize at the time that these people are playing characters. Like they kind of, as the seasons go on, they become more and more exaggerated versions of these characters. And I maybe on the first season one, it might have been like some semblance of themselves, but like towards season six, they're totally acting. It's a total act. They're actors at that point. So Mike is the alpha male, like pseudo alpha male type of guy. The next you have Snooki, Nicole Palazzi. She is arguably like one of the most, probably the most famous like name from the series. Like everybody's heard of Snooki, even if you've never even watched the show. She's tiny, really tiny, like tinier than you think. She's like 4'8", guys. Think about that for a second. Think about that for a second. This woman is 4'8". Like she is so small, loud and tan, and she is a self-described meatball. Yeah, she's, and honestly, she, I don't know. I like Snooki because I kind of feel bad for her because I feel like she's, excuse me, kind of the easy target, being like the most famous. So like people like would pick on her and stuff. So I feel like that's probably why I empathize with her a little bit more. But she's very much like the mean girl. Like pretty much every guy in the house is a total fucking misogynistic asshole, womanizing asshole, and every girl in the house is that mean girl, is the mean girl trope. So everybody sucks here. What is it? ESH. Everybody sucks here. But yeah, that's Snooki. Then you got Vinny. Vinny is like the self-proclaimed claimed smart one, I guess. If you need that archetype, he's like not like he went to college, but I mean he's like as stupid as the rest of them. So I don't really know why he like wanted that role, for maybe that was just the role that was left. I don't know. He's kind of a dick too. I remember like back in the day, I think I even had a crush on him because he seemed like the smartest of the bunch, but he's kind of a fucking dick too. They're all assholes. Then you got Sammy, who is a self-proclaimed sweetheart, but she's a very much a mean girl. Like she would just say some of the meanest shit. I'd be like, what the fuck? That was so unprompted. She'll just be nasty to somebody for no ass reason. It's crazy to me. And then her on again, off again boyfriend, which we will get into that shit, is Ronnie, who is a self-proclaimed juice head. All he cares about is working out and being looking good and having a pretty girlfriend. And honestly, getting over way too drunk. This man has like a serious alcohol problem. We'll get into that a little bit later. Then you have Pauly D, who is like the jokester of the bunch. And he, honestly, of all of them, like playing characters, his was the most charactery. Even when like there were moments that like felt real emotion, he would just be like the funny guy. I'm like, damn, like they're just putting out quips, just putting out little one-liners to try like things that you could put on t-shirts. Like that was his whole thing, which, you know what, I give him props for, because he had like, he didn't ever get any like real emotions in the show. It happened a couple of times where he would like get actually invested, but he never really tied himself to the show. He's just like, this is a paycheck. This is a paycheck. I'm here to make myself and these people some money, so I'm just gonna be a character. Like, so I kind of respect Polly the most out of the group for that reason. But again, he's also a dick. Then you got Jenny, JWoww. She's actually kind of one of the women of the group that I actually like the most. Like, she's still like a total mean girl and a total brat. But she seems a little bit less on her bullshit than the other people. Like a little bit more emotionally mature. Not totally. Like she's got some moments with her relationships throughout the show, but I mean, she seems the least problematic. And then you have Angelina here, who was only on the show for 2 seasons. We are going to talk about Angelina because they really kind of did her dirty in this show. I remember watching this years ago and thinking, God, Angelina's such a bitch. Why is she on this fucking show? And now watching it as an adult, I'm sitting here like, they mistreated the fuck out of her. They slut shamed her, they gaslit her, they scapegoated her. Like, she would never stood a chance on the show. They were always going to be against her no matter what the fuck she did. Wasn't fair. We're going to talk about Angelina. And then the final person that was on the show was the person that replaced Angelina. Her name is Dina, and she is also a self-described meatball. She's like meatball number 2 to Snooki's meatball. Also tiny, also skinny, also tan. Very emotional and very loud and very fun. She's like, she likes to call herself a blast in the glass. I like Dina a lot. I think actually I take it back. Jenny's great, but Jenny's okay. Dina's actually kind of awesome. Like, maybe not in the show. In the show, she was kind of a mess when it comes to like her emotional state. She wasn't very emotionally mature in the show, but like now she's actually like, she has the most, she's the one person in the whole group that actually has their shit together the most now. So I really kind of respect Dina. And that's the cast. Let's talk about the premise. So the idea is that it's a reality show with a house full of 8 quote unquote Guidos. Guido is actually a slur. So it's interesting that they're using it so, and honestly, I can't even, when it comes to slurs, man, they were just like, they were saying the R word in this show. They were saying the F word in the show. Like, it is. I get it. It's the mid 2000s, and I guess that was like a little bit less like, policed back then. But I mean, it's still wrong, man. It made me fucking feel dirty hearing it every time. Every time I would hear them say a word like that, I'd be like, oh fuck, oh shit, like every single time. So the very premise of the whole word Guido is a slur in and of itself, but that's their whole thing. It's basically the real world, like the MTV's Real World, but with Italians-ish, like, because not all of them are really Italian. They just look like they're Italian. Each season consisted of 55 days worth of filming. So they all 8 of the people would have to live in this house for 55 days. They don't have phones. They don't have internet access. Their friends can like show up if they're like around. They can't really coordinate it at all unless they're using like the actual landline phone, but they can't like text anybody and like look on Facebook and shit. And they're filmed 24/7. 24/7, except when they're in the shower. That is the only time they have privacy. There were times like where like people were like fucking in the show, and like I saw an ass. I saw thrusting. I'm like, they should not have been filming that. That might as well have been porn. Like, oh my God. Like, they are straight up filmed 24/7. So honestly, kudos to them for being able to deal with something like that. I feel like most people would not be able to like mentally handle that. And I mean, even they struggled with it. So it's honestly a pretty stressful thing to go through, to be filmed everything you do and actually have nothing to do. They don't have internet. So what the fuck are they going to do all day? That's why they would like prank each other and get into fights and gossip and go party all the time and get drunk all the time during the day and shit, because they had nothing better to do. So let's get right into it, y'all. The outcome was, like I said, they all play characters, kind of like content creators. That's actually kind of a thing I kept going back to as I was watching the show. It's just like, they're kind of just like influencers with the way that they play characters. Like, look at any content creator out there, y'all. Like especially the like most outrageous ones. They're probably being some semblance of themselves, but it's like a played up version of themselves for the sake of entertainment. So they kind of did that too here. They do not clean up after themselves. That's 55 days that they are stuck in this house together all the time. And these are the actually technically 9 like dirtiest people you've ever fucking seen. If you see the way the house looks at the end of each season, it is a fucking toxic wasteland. It's so gross. Like, imagine just like roommates never cleaning up. Or if they're gonna clean up, they're just doing the bare minimum. It is fucking gross, bro. Yeah, pretty much that's all they do. They just kind of, they have a thing that called GTL, gym tanning laundry. They do that every day. Bad for you. Thankfully, I think a lot of the cast does not do that anymore, going tanning every day. But they were doing that, and they were very dark, even though they were white people, very white people. They were like close to my skin color. So I'm like, that's pretty, ooh, I'm glad you guys don't have skin cancer, because that was really not good for you. They're all extremely shallow people. All the men only want to sleep with the sexiest women they can find, and anyone that is not up to their standards, they call it a grenade. They call that person a grenade because, like, I guess it's a war out there and you got to fall on the grenade for your friend or something like that. It's really fucked up. It's really fucked up. They're all really mean too. Like, they would just like say the nastiest shit to each other, especially Mike, man. that guy, like, and I'll give him some like a bit of a benefit of the doubt because he is actually under he is very severely addicted to painkillers for like the majority of the series. So as a result, you see like when you see him in season 6, his behavior is like kind of totally different from how he was throughout the entire rest of the show. So knowing that context, when I would hear him say these really nasty things, like I don't give him a pass for it, but I mean it makes a little more sense because his brain wasn't acting right, right? Because I really thought he was a woman hater. I thought he just fucking hated women. The way that he would just like objectify women and like comment on women's weight for no unprompted, just like calling women that are like 130 pounds, calling them fat and shit. Like he would just, oh god, it was ridiculous. And they're just mean, and it's funny because like they call themselves a family, but they're so mean to each other. It is incredible, and they're mean to the bystanders, like the people that are not actually in the show that they pass on the street. They are so rude and obnoxious to the people that live there. They don't live in Seaside. They don't live in Miami. They don't live in Italy, but they're acting so fucking awful to the people that do live there. So it's a wonder. It's no wonder that they got banned from multiple places. We'll get into that a little bit later. But yeah, let's talk about season 1. I call this the soft beginning. This is about like this season was a bit of a mess because it's all of the seasons were messes, but this is like maybe the least messy season just because they're all nobodies. I actually watched a video that Snooki made, and actually also JWoww Jenny, she also made a similar video of like the process they went through to get casted. And it's really true. Like none of them knew each other. I think some of them maybe like knew each other in passing. Like Angelina and Vinny, I guess, went to high school together. But for the most part, they just like went through a normal casting call. Like cause like a normal, like in a commercial, like they just went to a casting call. They did multiple interviews. And then when they were in like kind of the final 20, they were told to go to a hotel, drive to a hotel and stay there. Um, Bring everything, or I think either they had to leave everything at home or they had to bring everything hotel and then leave it there. But pretty much on a moment's notice, get a note would get slipped under their door and they would say you're in or you're not. Or actually, not even they wouldn't even tell you if you're not. They would just say you're in, and if you're in, you have to just pack your shit, leave your phone, leave everything there, and just go to the house. And that's how it is. And it's kind of crazy knowing that context because when you see the first episode, it seems like it's like all, I don't know, like they're all like were chosen long before, but it turns out like they didn't know until right before they walked into the house that they were chosen. So that was pretty cool. So as a result, everybody's a little bit more themselves. Everybody's a little more chillaxed. They're trying to get to know each other. The guys are trying to like feel out the girls and see if they're trying to like fuck with them. The girls are trying to be like, oh, are these guys trying to like, are they kind of my type? Right off the bat, everybody hates Angelina already. Because she walks in and she doesn't have luggage. She has trash bags that she's got her clothes in. And so they're fucking being so mean to her just for that, calling her like a dirty little hamster, quote unquote. And they're just so fucking mean to her. And I will say though, Angelina had a really bad attitude in season 1. Like she didn't want to do anything. Part of I missed this in the premise. Part of the agreement, if they're going to live in the house, is they have to work like part-time shifts at the Shore Store, which is a t-shirt shop nearby the house. And she just straight up decided not to show up one day, and she got fired. So she got kicked out of the house in like the 3rd episode. So Angelina, bad attitude season 1. Season 2, we're gonna come back to her because she got way more than she deserved in season 2. Snooki, I told you she was she ended up being kind of one of the most famous people in the show. She was actually the outcast in season 1 because she showed up and she was very nervous. This is what she said in her recap of like when getting casted. She was very, very nervous to the point where like she was like shaking, like apparently when she walked in the door, she was just like shaking. So that's why she said, everybody, let's take shots, because she was just so nervous. She just needed to like get a drink in her and get some liquid courage. Unfortunately, everybody in the house like saw her as being trashy because of that, and I felt so bad. No, like knowing that context, I felt so bad for her because she was just fucking nervous, and they were like so mean to her, and they were pretty much continued to alienate her for most of the season until around like later in the season when they all go to a bar and she got punched in the face by a dude. A dude punches this woman in the face, this 4'8" woman in the face, and after that, everybody kind of said, "Okay, let's be nice to Snooki." So. This is the start of what was known as MVP. That's Mike, Vinny, and Polly. They early on they started a little like friendship trio. Unfortunately, Mike was very heavily addicted to opiates at the time. It's not at its worst at this point, but he's still like he's using, right. So as a result, like Mike stirs up drama, but it's still not too bad. One of the bigger plot points that starts in season one are the saga of Ron and Sammy. They pretty much start dating right off the bat in the second or third episode. And thus starts the most frustrating part of the show. One of the most frustrating parts of the show. They are so bad for each other. They fight all the fucking time. They are mean to each other, especially Ron when he drinks, because I told you he has an alcohol abuse problem. So when he drinks, he gets really out of control and he starts saying hurtful stuff to her. And she's drunk and she's kind of like a coddled, like she likes to be, you should give all your attention to me. So as a result, like they're just the worst people for each other. And they're just it's so dramatic. Doesn't get as bad as it is going to get in a couple of seasons, but we get a little taste of Ron and Sammy. So that's season one. Let's talk about season two. I like to call the season the House of the Hypocrites. In season two, it was filmed in Miami, so I want to say it was still a year after they're usually filmed over the summer, and I think this was filmed a year after the first season. So Angelina comes back. She left early in the first season. She came back on the first one. Everybody was very mean to her. Everybody was extremely mean to her. She had a much better attitude. I think she really worked on herself. And honestly, like she still had moments where she would just like instigate fights because I think she literally just can't help it. But I mean, for the most part, she was like, okay, like she kept out of trouble. She didn't, antagonize people for the most part. But people just, they just hated her. They wanted somebody to hate. They like unified. The other 7 roommates just unified against her every fucking way that they could, Later in the season, she's like dating this guy named Joey, and that guy Joey is like buying her gifts and shit. I mean, like that's not her fault. He just wants to buy her some gifts, like but they're all like judging her, saying, "Oh, you're not gonna let him hit it because he's buying you gifts." And she's just like, "What the fuck? I don't need to." Especially considering the dudes bring back bitches every fucking night. Every night they bring a new woman back and fuck them. All the guys, they're all man whores, but they got the nerve. They've got the nerve to fucking talk about her. Oh, the hypocrites. And they even like admit it too. They even admit that it's a double standard. They say, yeah, it's a double standard, but girls aren't supposed to do that. I was like, you guys are idiots. So basically, she goes back and forth with Vinny throughout the whole season because Vinny really doesn't like her. And I think it's because they had history. Like I said, they went to high school with each other. And I think they maybe had a little history. So that's why they hate each other. Then suddenly they both get drunk and fuck one night, which was very weird. And then after that, the slut shaming just goes off the walls. They're just like fucking slut shaming her. Like, oh, you're going to fuck Vinny, but then you're going to like still date this guy, Joey. And I'm like, y'all did like Snooki did like the exact same thing earlier in the season where she was like kind of dating someone else and then she fucks Vinny and then fucking goes like, and nobody batted an eye. Nobody batted an eye. And they had the nerve, and even Snooki had the nerve to slut shame her. You're all fucking hypocrites. I hated this season for this. And like, I felt so bad for her because every day she would just be isolated and people saying like her roommates saying like nasty comments to her. And she just had to live with that because otherwise she's not going to get paid. She just had to fucking like endure it until the very like a couple of episodes left. It was the last week and she just couldn't take it anymore. She just like, this is like weighing on my mental health, man. I can't fucking do this. And now and they're all like, okay, good riddance, bye. But I'm like sitting here, I was so disgusted with all 7 of these people because of how they treated her. Like she did not fucking deserve that. And MTV didn't treat her much better. We'll talk more about that in a minute. Ron and Sam start the season broken up. They start the season broken up, but also kind of not. Like they're they're supposed to be broken up, but then they're like acting like they're a couple. But then Ron is still kind of fucking around behind her back and shit. And like it's just a whole lot of drama. And apparently all the roommates know about it. They know that he's fucking around behind her back and creeping on other girls and shit. So then fucking Jenny and Snooki write an anonymous note to Sammy, like detailing all of the slimy shit that Ron did. And of course it fucking goes horribly wrong and ends up like with a huge cat fight between Jenny and Sammy, like really damaging their relationship. They fucking hate each other after that for a while. It was just so dramatic for no reason. And of course, Ron is out of control. He's out of control on his alcohol benders. Mike is also using opiates. I think that a lot of them, like the issues, the mental health issues and the substance abuse issues that they were already struggling with in the previous season got exacerbated because the first season, was new, so no one knew about it, but it kind of blew up in terms of popularity. They all make a lot of money. They're coming back. They have bigger deals. They're a little bit famous now, and I think as a result, that lifestyle like caught up with a lot of them, and it really showed in season two because like they all were just such messes. They were such messes because of all of the drinking and partying and trying to be someone that maybe they're not, and it was just kind of heartbreaking to see that. Let's move on to season three. Oh God, I call this season "What a Mess." So let's start off with Angelina not returning. MTV and the roommates MTV edited the show to make it seem like Angelina was fired. When it turns out Angelina chose not to come back because of the mental health, the abuse that she experienced in the previous season. Her mental health couldn't take coming back again. That's not what we saw on the TV. When we saw the first episode, they were like, "Oh, good riddance," like they made it seem like she got fired, and I thought that was just so fucking dirty. Thankfully, Angelina was actually invited back. They rebooted the show back in 2017. This is a bit of a tangent. It's called Jersey Shore Family Vacation, and basically almost the entire cast comes back. Sammy does not, but Angelina does. And it seems like they kind of make amends with her and they treat her a lot better. Still a lot of drama and fighting and stuff, but it's just it. I'm glad of all of the people involved. I'm glad MTV did her right finally because this was just so dirty. They did her so fucking dirty. The new roommate that replaces her is Dina, and she's kind of like a second Snooki, like I mentioned, short, loud meatballs. Sammy and Jenny are still very much hating each other at this point, and I think they each actually have another cat fight, like they fight each other again, throwing hands on each other. Ronnie and Sammy, this is probably the worst of their relationship. Like it gets so explosive with Sammy punches him in the fucking face at one point. Ron, while she's go out like with the other girls dancing, Ron destroys all of her shit in her room and like throws her bed out on the porch, and like they're like kind of getting physical with each other. And it's driving us, the audience, insane because it's just like every fucking other scene they're in, they're fucking fighting and screaming and fucking crashing and throwing shit. And the roommates they see it too. You see their faces. They are so miserable just hearing them fight all the time. It's driving everybody involved crazy. It actually gets so bad that Sammy actually briefly leaves the shore house, and she comes back a couple of episodes later with more drama. Like it's just such a fucking mess. It's such a mess. Snooki got arrested this season for public drunkenness. Like I said, it's like at this point in the show, like the show is really popular at this point. So I really think a lot of them are trying to like inhabit these characters that are getting more and more outrageous because they think that's what the people want, but it's like detrimental to themselves. Like that was really embarrassing for Snooki, but she like they feel like, oh, we need to go crazy, we need to go wild, we need to like get fucking fucked up, and we need to go dance crazy and dress hella slutty and all that stuff because that's what the TV wants. I'm making this is speculation. I this is what I think was going through their heads. This is why I think they were acting the way they were doing, because I think that's what they thought that the masses wanted at the time in order to keep the show popular. And that's a shame. That's a shame. Remember, guys, these are kids that are in their early 20s, 21, 22, 23. They're in their think about when you were in your early 20s, man. If you had this much pressure to like abandon any schooling you were going to do to make this your career and like wanting to stay relevant. That's why I kept going back to content creation as I was watching this show, because it's like the same kind of thing, guys, when you think about it. We're going to talk about streamers a little bit later, especially toxic streamers, but like when you think about it, when it comes to entertainment, when these streamers find a niche that gets them really popular, that might be a little bad for them, but they keep doing it because they think they're going to lose viewers, they're going to lose subs, they're going to lose their income and their revenue if they don't do that. That's what my mind kept going back to as I watched this show, and it was really fucking heartbreaking, y'all. Let's talk about season 4. I call this season "Who Thought Italy Would Be a Good Idea for These People?" So the group the group goes to Italy. Italy, the country, is pissed about it. They almost got fucking kicked out of Italy because of how much fucking trouble they were causing. And they were so oh God, I love traveling, guys, and I love Europe, and I'm like, oh my God, I was so embarrassed on behalf of all Americans because of the way these people were fucking acting over there. Oh my God. So Mike, who was experiencing substance abuse issues with prescription pills all this time, comes to Italy. He has no pills. he's going through withdrawals the entire time, and it shows, y'all. It heavily affects his behavior. He has some ups, some very manic periods, and then some very, very low down periods. Apparently, a little bit like adjacently related, he hooked up with Snooki a month before the trip. At least this is what he alleges. And he alleges that it was while she was dating her long term boyfriend Gianni. Snooki actually ends up marrying Gianni. They're actually currently married right now. They have kids. But this was like a really big strife in their relationship because Mike was just starting drama with them about this. And in this whole drama about him wanting to like blow up the fact that they fucked, and potentially while she was with Gianni, he drags this out through all through season 4 and all through season 5. It is so fucking exhausting, this fucking storyline. Like, and I think it goes back to them wanting content, them wanting to make content, and wanting to fucking make keep the show popular and bring up drama because that's gonna make ratings and stuff like that. I'm pretty sure that's what he was wanting here. And little did he know, we don't fucking care about you fucking Snooki. This is not good content. We just want you to be done with it, bro. But he just like, oh my God, he just like dragged it out the whole time. And he was making really creepy advances toward her the whole time. She made very clear she's in a relationship. She loves her boyfriend, and he's putting his hands on her. He's fucking trying to like kiss her at clubs and shit. And she's just like, dude, you're being creepy. You need to back the fuck off. That said, like I understand he was going through withdrawals at the time. He was a very serious addict. I get it. It doesn't excuse his behavior, but it gives more context to it. So I get it. But it was really fucking problematic. Ron and Sam break up again. They break up again, and then they get back together again, and they're fighting again. Like, it's just like the worst fucking saga between those two. It was just bad TV because we were so fucking sick of it by this point. Dina has a really big crush on Polly. She's really trying to fuck Polly. Unfortunately, Polly's not attracted to her, and I think he doesn't want to hurt her feelings and tell her that, so he's kind of like leading her on a little bit. Not leading her on directly, but like he's not shutting it down. He's not shutting it down, the advances she's making, and as a result, she's like continuing to make them. So that whole thing was a little bit problematic. It got really problematic later because him and Polly and Vinny actually like pulled a really cruel prank on her. Basically, Vinny was trying to hook up with a girl, and drunk Dina, who was at the time, I think that was the first time she'd ever left the country, so she was really also very nervous, had a lot of anxiety, so she was drinking a lot. She wasn't really herself, so she was kind of acting out a lot throughout that trip. You kind of noticed that. I gave her the benefit of that doubt because, like, as a person, like when I first traveled outside of the country, I was really kind of like not really myself either. Like, I had a lot of anxiety, so I got that. Unfortunately, her roommates didn't have the same amount of grace. Vinny was trying to hook up with a girl. Dina pulled the robbery and said, "Nah, you're going to come hook up with me." And she hooked up with the girl. Vinny was pissed about that. So Vinny and Polly pulled a really mean prank on her, putting her bed and all of her stuff out in the living room, like kind of quote evicting her from the room they were sharing. And it really hurt her feelings. Like, she was already going through like all of this anxiety, and to see her roommates do that really kind of broke her down. And the worst part is when the other roommates tried to like make her feel better and confront them about it, they gaslit the fuck out of her, making it think it was her fault, making it think that she was the one that was in the wrong because she pulled the robbery. And I'm like, fuck you guys. Like, God, man, these men are just like the most manipulative motherfuckers, and the women are no better. Like, all 8 of these people are fucking shitty. Oh my God, they all suck. Mike and Ron have like a big fight this season. And remember, Mike is going through really, really intense withdrawals right now. And as a result, he has like a manic period where he's trying to pick a fight with Mike, and he like runs into the wall and like bangs his head on the wall and like kind of gives himself a mini concussion. It was just a really weird interaction. And then they ended up fighting anyway. After this, like, Ron and Mike are kind of not cool for a while. I think they kind of reconcile in season 6, but like this is kind of like their rift. And honestly, I don't even think Ron really ever liked Mike. I don't think anybody in the house really ever liked Mike because he was such a fucking instigator, and he was very clearly always rolling, fucking always high, and always fucking just not a good time. So I think that the most people in the house just never really liked him. But yeah, Gianni visits Snooki. Snooki acts out in the club while they're out. Gianni's, I guess, a pretty traditional guy, so he didn't really appreciate her, showing her booty in the club. But he's kind of a bitch about it because he like just ditches her in the club and like leaves Italy. Like, that was so fucked up. You don't just do that, man. You don't fucking be dating somebody long term. They do something you don't like and you just fucking leave them there. You just abandon them in the country that they're in. That was really fucked up and it really hurt Snooki. I think this is another reason why I really just like really sympathize with Snooki. Like, she's very much a mean girl and she's very mean too. But just watching her like crumble and break down because this happens to her, it, like, really broke my fucking heart. She's like crying and whimpering and screaming in the streets, Gianni, where are you? And I'm like, oh God. That's so sad. And it's also, keep in mind, they're in Italy. People live there and they're fucking hollering in the streets and shit. Like, I'd be like, shut the fuck up! Like, if that was happening outside of my fucking window. So, no, it's... Everybody sucks here, guys. This whole show is just like ESH. Everybody sucks here. They did a lot of excursions in Italy as a group, like going and traveling to different places in Italy, but it was really wasted on them. I think that's kind of the biggest crime from this season that I just like was so pissed about, because these 8 people got this like all expense paid trip to Italy, one of the most beautiful countries in the world, and they squandered it. They would go like wine tasting and they're like learning about the history of the vineyards, and they're talking about, when do we get to drink wine? This is boring, and like going to like acting like they're falling asleep on the barrels and stuff. I'm like, you disrespectful fucks. Like, this is like, you're just squandering this fucking experience, bro. And not to mention the Italy themselves, like in the months leading up, when it was making rounds around social media that they were going to be filming in Italy, Italy was very much not with it. So by the time they got to Italy, they were not welcome. Every single, like, pretty often when they would go to clubs, they would get harassed. And people would be like chanting in Italy, go home, fuck you, because like they just did not want them there, right? And they almost got banned. They almost got kicked out of Italy. So it was just... what a mess of a season. And in fact, when I was originally watching the show as a teenager, this was the last season I watched. I did not watch season 5 and 6 when I was a teenager. I just did now, but this was about, I think even teenage Gozy was just like, yeah, I'm done with this show. Hello, folks. If you like what you're hearing or what you're watching, then please check out my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/GozyMai. That's GOZIMAI, where you'll catch me playing video games, cracking dumbass jokes, and having a good ass time. I post my schedule every Monday on Twitter, so please come and say hi. And now back to the show. Let's move on to season 5. Season 5, I call this season, what the fuck were they thinking going straight into season 5? Basically, after coming home from Italy, the cast gets no break from filming. They go straight back to Seaside Heights and film season 5 right after they fucking land. Who the fuck's idea was that? Think about that. That was 55 days in Italy that they were filmed 24/7, no phones, no contact, no nothing. And then they're going to film for another 55 fucking days. By this time, they're all fucking sick of each other. They were so fucking sick of each other by the end of Italy. Like, and I'll say it again. As a person that like went to Europe with friends a few years ago, that was my first time going to Europe. That was my first time traveling for like 3 weeks. That was a long time for me. It really weighed on my mental health, and I clashed with my friends a little bit because I was sitting here like, I'm not in my element and I feel very stressed. Think about that. But 55 days, and with people that aren't really your friends. They're just like your coworkers, your castmates. These people fucking hated each other by the time they got back. So immediately when they get back, Mike starts to try to continue that drama because like apparently he's trying to like tell Gianni about their alleged hookup. Note that season 5 was the height of Mike's substance abuse. His substance abuse was at an all-time worst at this point. He like goes on pretty much a huge bender for the entire season, and it's really cringy and it's really hard to watch. He's really paranoid. He's constantly instigating drama. Like it's like compulsive with him. Like, oh man, there's like silence happening. Let me go find some drama to start. It's really fucking cringy. He has many manic episodes and depressive episodes throughout the entire season. The roommates are totally tired of his shit, and they're actively going out of their way to exclude him any way they can. There's even like a whole arc in a couple of episodes where I guess his birthday is around the same time as Polly's birthday, and the roommates were a lot more enthusiastic about celebrating Polly's birthday than they were for Mike, and Mike felt it. And knowing in him being on drugs, like the impact was a little bit harder. So he went into a really deep depression because of it. Like it was really, really hard to watch. His friend Unit is another guy that was a recurring annoying piece of shit throughout the season, pretty much just like him, by the way, and also hopped up on drugs and ketamine and shit. He actually even gets fucking arrested at some point for fucking ketamine possession, which they very much sanitized on the show. He got arrested on the show, but they like made it seem like it was drug and disorderly. No, it was fucking drug possession. Like he fucking no, that was he really got in trouble for that. And yeah, so his friend Unit apparently corroborated the story that they hooked up. So he was trying to work with Unit, and Unit's just like, oh yeah, drama. It never worked out because Unit got arrested. It was just such a fucking mess with Mike that season. This season, Vinny was also experiencing extreme anxiety and depression, and he was very vocal about it. I really kind of like admired that, like he was really vocal about his mental health issues. I feel like in the later 2000s, going into the 2010s, maybe mental health, normalizing talking about mental health was like kind of still in its infancy. I don't really remember doing it too much. Coming from a black family, those that are other black folks out there are probably identify with this too. But coming from a black family, like mental health was never really something we talked about. It was known as quote, don't hate me for this. It was known as quote unquote a white people problem. It's not. I know that now, but that is something that it's a stigma that's in the black community that I think is slowly getting phased out, thankfully. But yeah, it was definitely refreshing to see mental health being spoken about so candidly. I mean, even in season 6, when Mike eventually does get clean, talking about like substance abuse so candidly, I think that was like kind of a really positive thing. And a show that's very negative, it was really nice to see some positive come out of it. But yeah, and then Pauly D actually has like a stalker this season that they make a really big deal about. Turns out his stalker, I forgot her name, but I did a little research in her, and apparently she's not really she's a stalker, yeah, but not just for Pauly. Apparently she has like a huge hobby of getting as many appearances and photos with celebrities as possible. She has something like 10,000 pictures with like hundreds and hundreds of celebrities. And Pauly D was just one of those celebrities, but they made a big deal on the show, like, oh, she's my stalker, she's my stalker. But it turns out she's every celebrity stalker. She's just in it for the clout. So I thought that was a really funny side story. But yeah, season 5 was pretty cringy just because like they're all exhausted and they're tired of each other and they were just ready for it to be done. They really should not have done that. And then finally, season 6. This is the season that I'm actually still watching right now, but I'm almost done with them. I'm like episode like 10 right now. I think I've seen enough. And this season, Jenny is having issues with her longtime partner, Roger. He's like another quote unquote juice head. And honestly, prior to this season, I thought Roger was actually a pretty good guy. Like he's like seemed like a very emotionally mature person, very much keeping her like grounded in her own like kind of making her a little bit more mature too. Unfortunately, another side of Roger kind of came out this season where they got into like a big fight at a club, and Jenny tried to get in the way and he pushed her down and actually sprained her ankle. Her ankle sprained because of it. Already problematic that he got physical with her. And then later when she went to the doctor and got a splint for it, she had like a little mini cast on it. She got on the phone with him and he started saying some problematic shit, guys. He started saying like shit like oh, you're playing up the victim, you're just doing it for attention, oh yeah, it wasn't really that bad. And I was like, fuck you, dude, you pushed her down and she fucking sprained her ankle. She didn't do that fucking on purpose, like, you asshole. So like hearing that from Roger, it kind of makes more sense. I like throughout the whole show I was sitting here like, man, Roger's such a cool guy, why the fuck did they get divorced? After watching the season, I'm just like, I see why the fuck they got divorced. Let's be real. Mike is fresh out of rehab at this point and he's finally clean. He doesn't drink, he doesn't smoke, and he doesn't use. It's really cool to see him like this. He's very positive. You can tell that he's like really like, it doesn't feel like lip service, it feels like he really is like leaning on his support network to really do this. And there's a lot of triggering stuff in the environment because the roommates are still drinking and going crazy and he's not. And it's a struggle for him, but it's definitely kind of like refreshing to see Mike not be so destructive. That said, he does start a relationship with his longtime friend with benefits, Paula, but they eventually break up because he kind of doesn't like, I guess, the person that she's becoming, according to him, which I'm like, she was always that. Like the crazy, she was like always like a raunchy, outgoing person, and she would say like really raunchy shit. She did that the whole series. She's a recurring person that would keep coming back, and he's acting like, oh man, this is my girlfriend now. You're not supposed to be talking like that. I'm like, you knew she was like this, you ass. He said a fucking comment that I was like so appalled. I had to pause it. And I was like, you piece of shit. Like he said something like, yeah, just some of the things you say just make me uncomfortable. You know, like you're great when you're just sitting there quietly. And you saw her face just like drop. I was like, I want to hit him in the face right now. They do eventually break up, and there's some drama that happens a little bit later, but it's God, he's a piece of shit either whether he's using or not, but he's just slightly less of a piece of shit when he's not using. So I guess that's all we can be grateful for. Dina has some pretty extreme separation anxiety this season. She's finally has a boyfriend. I think she's had said something like she'd like kind of never had a boyfriend as an adult, so she finally has a boyfriend named Chris. Chris is great. Love Chris. Like, oh man, of all of the boyfriends, Chris is like the best because he is just so smitten with her and like lets her get away with so much shit, and I love it. But like they were I think dating for like 9 months before the show, and then when she like left for Seaside, which is actually really close to where he lives, by the way, he's only a drive away, she just feels like this massive separation anxiety from him, so she's crying all the time, she's extremely emotional, and I think it's because like she doesn't have a lot of emotional security at that time in her life. I think she's great now, she's like a much more emotionally mature person, but like she was really fucking struggling this season, acting out a lot. Not to mention Snooki was pregnant this season, so she couldn't like be going and getting drunk with her meatballs, so she felt lonely. And she was trying to compensate by getting really, really drunk. She gets arrested this season, and her mom gives her like her roommates and her mom give her like a huge intervention and shit. Chris like supports the hell out of her. And honestly, it's really kind of cool what Chris says. Like he pretty much says, don't listen to your roommates, don't listen to your mom. Like I will let you know if your behavior is wrong for me, but you're fine. And I was like, you are a fucking cinnamon roll, Chris. Oh, they get married later. They're married now. So I'm really happy. I like Dina and Chris are just like my favorite outcome of this entire fucking shit show. But yeah, that is fucking Jersey Shore, guys. Like that was a lot. This show is, oh God, so motherfucking toxic, guys, but it is entertaining for all the bad reasons. The verdict, it aged like milk, guys. Oh, it's so problematic. It does not stand up in 2022. But I did still kind of enjoy watching it because it was just such a train wreck of a show. And I think that's the point of reality TV, guys. I think it's supposed to be trashy and cringy because it's not your life. You're laughing at someone else's life. I don't know. Maybe like reality TV in general just doesn't really have a place in society anymore. But that was Jersey Shore, and that was Throw It Back. Let's move on to our next segment tonight. Do we stand it? In this segment, we look at a new work and we determine whether we stand it or whether we can it. This month's Do We Stand, or this week's Do We Stand, I gotta get used to that. We're like weekly now, is The End Is Nigh. The End Is Nigh, the new science-y, apocalypse-driven show produced by Seth MacFarlane. If you are not familiar with him, he's made shows like American Dad and The Orville and Family Guy. Very funny guy, very talented guy, and a very nerdy guy. He loves science, Seth MacFarlane. He previously produced the reboot of Cosmos with Neil deGrasse Tyson from, I think, 7 or 8 years ago. I love that series too. So I was very excited to see a new series come from him. And especially being starred by Bill Nye the Science Guy. Who is Bill Nye? If anybody was born like before the year 1995, you know who Bill Nye the Science Guy is. He pretty much like sparked my interest in science. He had a TV show on Disney in the 90s that would have different topics of science, geology, astronomy, physics. Like he would just like take a topic and just teach kids about it. And I thought that was so rad. So it's so cool to see him come back for a show. Let's talk about the premise, y'all. So the premise of The End Is Nigh is Bill explores a natural disaster on the scale of apocalyptic proportions. So basically, the natural disasters that he talks about are Yellowstone erupting, a supervolcano erupting, a shower of comets crashing on Earth, the Ring of Fire tectonic plates rupturing, the global dust bowl coming back, mega hurricanes all converging to a huge hurricane, and then finally a solar flare killing all of the electricity on Earth. So basically those are the 6 episodes, and he spends a whole episode talking about it. It's very story driven. He really like kind of frames it in a way that's very human. Like he really connects it back to humanity, because that's kind of the point. I think the whole point of this show is to kind of scare us a little bit, but like in an educational sense, to show us what could happen if we don't do anything. if we just leave shit the way it is right now, a lot of people would die. And then it's pretty great because later he tells us how we can fix it. How can we prepare? Like, we can't prevent these things from happening, but we can prepare ourselves so that we can maximize human life. So that's kind of the premise of the show. Let's talk about the structure. So each episode starts with an introduction to the disaster itself. It's in this kind of museum, this disaster museum that I believe Bill is acting as the curator of, and he kind of talks about the historical context of each disaster. So in this episode, it was about Yellowstone erupting, a super volcano. So he talked about Pompeii and how. Human negligence made it so that the loss of life was a lot bigger than it needed to be. I didn't even know this, but apparently at Pompeii, this Mount Vesuvius was erupting for days before it like really fucking blew its top. And the people of Pompeii were just watching it like it was sport. They were like, "Oh, this is cool," and like they had days to evacuate and they didn't. So it's really cool. He uses history to kind of foreshadow how history would repeat itself if we don't do anything today. The next part is the disaster simulator. Like, again, reflective of the world today. A lot, pretty much, it was always going to be him going up into this ball, this earth ball, to kind of show a simulated scenario of what would happen if that thing happened today, if that disaster happened today. And a lot of the disasters had pretty similar trends. They all had a scientist that was catching it early, but politicians and the general public wouldn't listen to give those scientists the resources that they needed to be like to have preventative measures. Then the general public not being aware enough of the danger to take precautions or to react to the dangers, because politicians aren't communicating out to the public that the danger is real. And then you've got global governments letting politics cause them to act too late or not at all, or straight up do the wrong thing entirely, which was a recurring theme, a recurring bit called the act of cow. So apparently the act of cow refers to it was like the 19 something, the early 1900 Great Fire of Chicago that was caused apparently by a cow that kicked over a lantern, and it made it so that like millions and millions of dollars of damage happened. And the question you ask is, why was there a lantern sitting right next to a cow so that they could kick it over? So that's the act of cow. It's basically humans doing the exact wrong decision to make a situation a million times worse than it already is. These disaster simulators would always end in death. They would always end in a maximum loss of life, and even Bill Nye would actually die. Like they were very visceral about it, and I think that was really effective. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Then after the disaster simulator, Bill would go into the science behind why that disaster or how that disaster could happen. And in a lot of cases, he would like go all the way back 4.5 billion years ago when the Earth was forming, why the Earth like has super volcanoes and what's happening in the magma under our crust. Where comets come from, why a comet could break up into a bunch of pieces and crash into the Earth. Apparently, it was really cool. Like that was. I'm not even gonna spoil that. Like y'all need to go watch this show. It's really cool. Each episode's like something like 35 minutes long. Like it's a really fucking cool show. It just came out last week. He goes into the science like astronomy, physics, geology, chemistry. Like it's really, really fascinating, and it kind of goes back into the Bill Nye science guy that we all know and love. And then finally, we talk about what we can do to maximize our survival. And he talks about a lot of really cool ways to prevent these massive losses of life. I will not spoil it. Like this image you're looking at is as awesome as you think it is. Like I'm not even going to tell you what it is. Just go watch the show. Like it's really, really, really fascinating. And a lot of the stuff like feels really attainable if we just as a society would just acknowledge that it's a problem. Many of these issues, many of these disasters are caused mostly because of like global warming. There's some things that we can't do anything about because it's like the forming of the earth or it's a comet or something. But some of these things like are caused directly from our own actions, and it's really fascinating to see what those consequences could be, and then what we can do, like actual things we could do now to prevent those things, or at least ensure our maximum survival. Let's talk about the good. This show is really good for folks that like science. If you're a science nerd, any topic in science, if you're a science nerd, you're gonna fucking love this show, man. It's so fascinating how deep they get into it. It's very understandable too. I think even people that aren't scientists, even people that aren't don't do that for a living, they can understand it and comprehend it, and still find it very interesting. So I really thought they were very effective in that. The show really hits the emotional points really, really heavily, but not cheaply. They're not doing it just to shock you. They're doing it to show the reality of what could happen in this situation. What's pictured here is a actually a picture of Bill, who died in the disaster simulator, out trying to outrun a pyroclastic flow, which you cannot do. You can't do it. Um, there's another image in in this episode that I won't show because it really touched me. It really moved me emotionally. That I think that you guys should see for yourself. So I didn't include it here, but it's just like it really shows us the cost of what being willfully unprepared can do in these situations. Seth MacFarlane makes multiple appearances in the show, multiple cameos, and he is just a delight. He's very funny. He's a very funny guy, but he's very much doing these things in service of education. I really, really admire Seth MacFarlane for that because, like, you see him mostly in like Family Guy, so you're thinking, oh, he's just like he makes dumbass jokes. Excuse me, but Seth MacFarlane's actually a very intelligent man. He's a very intelligent person, and he really is committed to spreading knowledge and the greater good. Changing society for the greater good of all. The commentary is also really, really good on what we can prepare. We cannot prevent these things because, like a lot of them, if it's because of global warming, the damage is already done. Or if it's something else that's out of our control, we can't prevent it, but we can certainly prepare for it. And it's very like comprehensive, the steps that he talks about, and very attainable. It doesn't really sound. Some of it sounds a little bit like science fiction, but it's very like theoretically possible. Science fiction. There's not a lot of bad in this show. I gotta say, it's very short. It's only 6 episodes. I really loved it. The script is a little bit try hard Gen Z a little bit. They try to say some little cringy just Gen Z quips here and there. And I've been noticing that a lot in shows lately. I don't know what the fuck is up with that. Like, it's like millennials and Gen Xers fucking trying to write for Gen Zers. I don't know what the fuck they're trying to do. Just stop doing it. And then the only other con is there's not enough episodes. There's only 6 episodes. Yeah, like I really wish there was more. So I really like the show. I can't wait to get more out of it. I can't wait to get more episodes in the new season. What's the verdict, guys? We stan it. Go watch it. I want more of it. And that is, do we stan it? Our final segment tonight is Gozy Zooms In. It's a segment where we take a topic or work in pop culture and we analyze the shit out of it. And this week we're going to talk about toxic streamers. What makes a streamer toxic? What makes for toxic content in our content creation community? And I think what makes toxic behavior is promoting behaviors that should not be promoted. Using your platform to be either irresponsibly or willfully, to willfully spread harm. That is toxic to me. So let's talk about some toxic things. I'm going to do a good disclaimer here. I'm about to drop some names. That is not me having anything personally wrong. I don't have any personal beef with any of these people I'm about to talk to. Any names I drop is just to give you an example of what I'm talking about. I'm going to talk about a concept of something that is cringy and toxic that happens in our community. Multiple people do these things, but I'm giving relevant examples for those that are aware of those streamers and what they've done to give them an idea of what that toxicity entails. So that is my disclaimer. Gozy ain't got no beef. Nobody come for me, but this is just what I've observed in my time. Let's talk about the lowest level of toxicity on this list: unsportsmanlike behavior in esports. Esports is a whole ass thing in content creation. It's a competitive video game playing. There are lots of very talented men and women on the scene, mostly men. Different topic. We'll talk about that another day. And a lot of times it's very positive. A lot of times these esports athletes will be very supportive of one another. Like a tournament will happen, somebody will win, a team will win, and they'll be like, you know what, we did our best. We didn't stack up this time, but we're gonna do it next time. Congratulations, blah blah blah. Most of them are like that. I gotta tell you, most of them are very sportsmanlike. Some aren't. Recently in the Apex Legends tournament series called ALGS, Dark Zero won that series. And that series is very controversially judged based on a concept called match point. It's basically when a team reaches something, I think it's like 49 or 50 points or something. No, I think it's 49 points. If a team reaches 49 points, they're at match point. And in order to win the tournament, they have to win a game. And usually how these go is they keep playing. Pretty much the tournament keeps going until somebody that has match point wins. And they'll keep going and keep going until there's like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 teams that all have match points. So it's a toss-up. It's a toss-up who's going to win. So the first team that makes match point, you would think they win. Usually not. It's usually kind of an RNG type of thing in the end on who wins. It's flawed. Nobody likes it. It sucks. But it's the way that EA does it. It's the way that EA runs their esport. So ALGS this year happened. Dark Zero won. It was match point amongst, I think, like 9 teams, including Furia, who is the player here is his Watson on Furia. While every other team and every other player praised Dark Zero, said, "Good job, Dark Zero, you did well." His Watson decided to go on Twitter and say, "We should have won that tournament. As far as I know, Furia won that. We were the best ones there. We got match points for." He was just so toxic. He was so toxic, and he just like was on a tweet storm about it. And he would not let it go, And I found that so fucking toxic because I'm sitting here like, in this sport, like imagine any other sport if somebody was like, I guess there's other, I don't know. It's toxic behavior. It is maybe the lowest tier. We're going to talk about like some pretty fucking heinous shit that happens on these platforms. So I consider this kind of on the lowest tier of it, but it's still toxic, It's still toxic. People should be supportive, If you have nothing nice to, what they say to kids? If you got nothing nice to say, don't say it at all, man. Keep that shit to yourself. You say that shit behind closed doors with your teammates, but don't go on your platform with 200, 300, 400,000 people hearing that shit because it fucking spreads toxicity to other people. Because now your fans are going on saying those things. And this great thing that happened to Dark Zero is tarnished. Now it's fucking tarnished. So the next thing that I'm gonna talk about is content creators committing micro or macroaggressions toward marginalized communities and choosing to ignore the callouts. The person pictured here is Draynilla. I love Draynilla. I love his. I really like him. I like watching him. He's very funny. He's very easygoing. He's a really great content creator. Unfortunately, his entire brand almost is banking on a concept called queer baiting. And what queer baiting is a straight person acting queer for the sake of content that they're not actually queer, And he does this a lot, where he's like he says things that suggest that he's a gay man and he's not, and he's doing it for the sake of being quote unquote sus. In his words, that's his word, sus. And it's one thing to do these things, but when he was called out on it by members of the LGBTQ plus community, he totally rejected every grievance they had. It's toxic to do, and that's not even the most. It's very toxic. But what makes it worse is that he used the fact that he's a black man as some sort of excuse to be bigoted. To exhibit toxic, bigoted behavior. Like him being a black man. Oh, I'm a black man. I could not possibly be bigoted. I could not possibly, I have so many, I think he even said that. I have so many friends in the gay community. What does that sound like to you? What does that sound like to you, y'all? That sounds like white people saying, I can't be racist. I have plenty of black friends. That's the same fucking thing. You cannot use your status as a member of a marginalized community as an excuse to reject criticism. That doesn't make you immune to criticism. That doesn't make it okay for you to oppress another group, And I thought that was so toxic, And quite frankly, this happens not even just with Draynilla. This happens in the VTuber community as well. There's a lot of debate that you see on Twitter. I see this like every other fucking week. Like it seems like this comes up on Twitter where there are non-black and non-brown people that are IRL people that want black and brown models. And they don't see a problem with that. And then here's the thing, when black and brown people speak up, Black and brown VTubers speak up and say, no, you can't do that. That is wrong for you to do that. That is pretty much blackface because you were using my skin color. You're trying to wear my skin like it's a fucking costume, and I am not a costume to you. We tell them that and they reject it. They're saying, it's not that serious, man. Like, it is so toxic. If a person from a marginalized community is telling you that something that you're doing is harmful to their community, fucking listen to them. If you're not a part of that community, you have no fucking bearing to tell them that they're wrong because you're not a part of that fucking community. Fucking listen to them, learn, learn from it, take the opportunity, take the L. It's a L. You're going to get a little hate for a while, learn from it, apologize, and fucking listen to them. Don't reject it. I know you guys know who this person is. The next toxic thing that happens in the content creator community is streamers using their platform to actively influence young viewers negatively. The person pictured here is Andrew Tate. You have all probably heard that name through the waves a lot in the last couple of weeks, and it's because his antics on social media and on Twitch and on various platforms have finally come to the mainstream, and people know what kind of a bad person he is. This man is a misogynist. This man likens women to dogs. This man encourages young men to beat women when they quote unquote don't obey. This man has had video evidence against him beating on women, abusing women, and then he comes out and say they quote they wanted it. This man has been accused of sex trafficking, and this man has allegedly fled to another country he actually admitted this. He fled to another country because they have less strict laws on sexual assault. So he fled to another country to dodge the sex traffic. Oh, allegedly, I'm going to say allegedly to dodge sex trafficking allegations. Yeah, this is a fucking bad person. This person has hundreds of thousands of followers on Twitch. This person has hundreds of thousands of young men, and I say young men because there ain't no women watching this dude, and there are no women watching him. Hundreds of thousands of young men and young boys watching and listening to every fucking word he says because this man he's in shape, he's buff, he thinks he's attractive, he's wealthy because he had a very successful kickboxing career, so he's very wealthy, he has very sexy model girlfriends, so he boasts this lifestyle. And he goes and tells these young boys, if you want to live like me, quote, like a top G, you have to treat women like shit and give me money. Like he has like an entire, that's another topic. Taking advantage of community is another topic. For right now, I'm mostly talking about his negative shit that he spews on his fucking platform, and it infects the mind of young people it's just irresponsible. And he thinks he's righteous in this shit. He thinks he's righteous, And honestly, other content creators make this situation worse by inviting him onto their platforms, giving him yet another platform to spew his toxic shit on, and that was happening a lot. People would, because it's content. This person is a fucking misogynist, so I need to get him on my podcast. So, because that'll give me content. All that does is it gives him a whole other, group of listeners to spew his bullshit on, to perpetuate and spew that harmful rhetoric in a public space. And it affects people. It affects young viewers. There's teachers going on Reddit telling accounts of their preteen little boys, 12 to 13-year-old little boys, telling the female classmates and female teachers that they're useless and that should go back to the kitchen. And make sandwiches, and have kids, and women shouldn't have careers. If a woman has a career, she's irresponsible. What kind of life could you have if you have a career? It's incredible and that's little boys. They don't know better. And all of this confidence just being pushed down their fucking throats because of these algorithms making this guy more and more fucking popular. It's really fucked up, man. It's really fucked up. So, yeah, that's fucking Andrew Tate. The next thing is creating cringe content cringe content that passively influences young viewers. And it's very negligent, right? It's negatively influencing young viewers passively. who is pictured here is a very, very large content creator named iShowSpeed. He's like one of the fastest growing content creators like on the YouTube platform. He has very cringe content. He's very loud and very over exaggerated. Makes a lot of very sexual jokes, very inappropriate shit to be putting on. Which, you know what, all power to you, like on the content you create. But like his content is so cringe, and he bases his whole brand on being cringy and being controversial. And it also really negatively influences young viewers, man, because it's making them think, oh, you know what, I can be a streamer and I just need to say racist shit. I just need to say the N word and all of these fucking slurs on my channel, and I'll be just as famous. I saw it. I fucking like part of what sparked this entire topic. I saw a video a couple of months ago of like a little 10-year-old boy that was streaming on Twitch. He didn't have a lot of followers, but he was streaming on Twitch, and he was like going around female content creators Twitch channels while they were live and commenting on their looks, and talking and pretty much spewing the same shit that Andrew Tate would say, you know, like about like, oh, women go in the kitchen, women are useless, blah 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 blah, all this shit. And that was a 10-year-old boy. And guess what, when you scroll down a little bit more on that little boy's page, one of the content creators that he draws inspiration from is iShowSpeed. It's fucking harmful, man. Even if his content, even if he's not being like Andrew Tate tells people you need to do X, Y, and Z to live like me. iShowSpeed doesn't really do that. He does his own thing, and his shit is cringy, and that's his content. But that's also harmful. It's negligent, you know, to be spewing this negative stuff. And some examples of some negative stuff he does. He's streamed straight up porn before. Like there was a Minecraft mod that he had that made it so you could like show sex on Minecraft, and he like, I think he got banned briefly from the platform because of that, because he flashed it and showed it like some girl like giving him head on the fucking Minecraft game. He's actually banned on Twitch right now because he was a guest on somebody's fucking like stream where he was talking to an Instagram model, and they were talking about something like, if we were the last two people on, he asked her, if we were the last two people on Earth, would you mate with me or something? And she said no. And then he says, how would you stop me? Insinuating that he's gonna sexually assault her. And he doubled down on it, and he screamed it, and people applauded him in the chat. Like, it's fucking harmful, guys. This is toxic. These are kids. These are kids watching this shit and learning this shit, and it's molding them and making them think, oh, that's okay. I can joke about sexual assault with females. I can do that shit. No, you fucking can't. But who's going to tell them that? And the worst part is their parents don't know they're watching this shit. Their parents don't even know about this shit. Andrew Tate made waves last week because he just blew up, because Instagram fucking banned him, and TikTok banned him, and Twitch banned. Like, that's the only reason why even people know his fucking name. Before last week, a lot of people didn't even fucking know who Andrew Tate was, except for people that were really in the know about it, or his fucking fans. How many parents know about iShowSpeed? Probably not a lot, bro. Probably not a lot. They probably don't even know their kids are watching this guy. So it's so fucking harmful and irresponsible as content creators to be putting this content on the internet, knowing full well that kids could be watching it and not giving a fuck because it's content and I'm gonna get paid. Irresponsible, toxic. The next thing is exploiting their communities. Content creators exploiting their communities, especially for financial gain. We're back on fucking Andrew Tate. He had something called Hustlers University. Remember I told you, his whole thing, this whole stream is telling young boys, if you want to live like me, this is how you're going to do it. And he would con the shit out of them and make them pay him money so that they can share his videos on other platforms and make him more famous. That was his fucking scheme. Like, they pay him money to fucking share his videos on TikTok and shit, which gives him more exposure. Like, a lot of these kids found him through TikTok because of this shit, you know? And he's convincing these people, this is so I can make you a top G. And they're falling for it. They're falling for it. This motherfucker made a whole ass Ponzi scheme, a straight up Ponzi scheme, and convinced all these people it's not a Ponzi scheme. And it's a fucking Ponzi scheme. It's amazing. And this is just one example. But I mean, like when you're a content creator and you foster community and you have viewers and people that are very much invested in you, it is your responsibility to not actively put them in harm's way and not fucking take advantage of them, you know? It's a blessing. It's a blessing to have a community of people that want to watch you and follow you and care about you. And if you just fucking milk them dry out of their money for your own financial gain, that's fucking toxic, man. That's fucking toxic. You can say, oh, he's just getting his bag. He's just getting his bag. Okay, get your bag. You're still toxic for that. You know? It's toxic. The next one is exploiting the platform. These are the person that's pictured here is Amaranth. She's only one example of this, guys. I'm talking like kind of all hot tub streamers. Y'all know this. Content creators out there, streamers out there, you know this, that this is a whole ass thing, a whole ass genre of Twitch where women, e-girls are going out there, skirting very close to the line on sexual content on the platform. This is not a sexual platform. This platform has very clear terms of service. Part of the problem here is that Twitch very selectively enforces their terms of service, especially if it's someone who's a high earner like this person here. They are much more likely to turn the other way if they're doing something questionable. Remember, this platform has kids on it. Yes, you can mark your stream as mature content only. That doesn't stop kids from age 13 to even younger than that. That does not stop kids from coming to see your content. It's irresponsible. It's irresponsible to be putting content like this on a platform that any child can look at. I'm not a prude, guys. I'm all about sexual positivity. Y'all, OnlyFans, hey, get your bag, honey. I fucking thought about doing OnlyFans once upon a time. Get your fucking bag. But this is not that. Twitch is not that, guys. Over sexualizing this platform can also reinforce negative stigmas on certain communities on the platform. One of the big ones here is the ASMR community. The ASMR channel, the ASMR category is totally dominated by this style of content creation where they have these ears and they're licking on the ears, you know? Or I even saw one video a long time ago where I don't know if it was Amaranth. I'm not gonna say it was her, but it was some e-girl on the app that was like blowing the ear like it was a dick and making sounds like she was blowing a dick on Twitch. She didn't get banned for that. That happened. That's porn, bruh. That's motherfucking porn, though. You trying to tell me that's not against the TOS? Whereas now VTubers are getting fucking banned because the terms of service are saying that you can only show a certain amount of your tits, and we're cartoon characters, and we're getting banned for that shit, but they're not getting banned for fucking blowing a goddamn ear like it's a dick. Come on, bro. And it over sexualizes ASMR communities. ASMR is like a fucking clinical fucking treatment for people that like experience anxiety and mental health issues. They use ASMR to calm themselves. It's not sexual for a lot of people, but as a result of this shit, the whole world thinks anybody that likes ASMR are perverts. Like, that's fucked up, bro. And not to mention, even like the VTubers, it over-sexualizes VTubers. There was like a whole wave where like e-girls and bigger streamers were putting the VTuber tag on their streams and abusing that functionality, abusing that feature so that they can pull viewers from that already niche community, pulling viewers from that. It's really fucking, it's not only is it unethical, it's toxic, man. It is toxic to do that, man. So, in my opinion. And then the next thing is using their communities to cause harm to others. The person pictured here is Gideon. I didn't even know who this person was until recently. Excuse me. And it was very valid, his complaints. But recently there was a streamer, another e-girl, that broadcasted herself having sex with her boyfriend on Twitch, and she only got banned for 7 days. Whereas, and she's a white woman. Whereas this person got banned permanently for doing a hate raid on Pokemon. I am going to just say this right now. They both deserve to be perm banned. Because he did a really bad thing too. He put a fucking hate raid on a woman, on anybody, putting a hate raid on anybody, using your community to cause trauma and harass another community is perma-bannable. So I'm glad he got banned for that. That was wrong of him to do that. That was fucking wrong of him to do that. You know, another example of this is going back to iShowSpeed. Recently, if you guys are familiar with Jake Lucky, he's an esports commentator on Twitter. He does a lot of esports news and gaming related news, and he's pretty fair. Like, I don't think he really shows any bias whatsoever. To be honest, I've been following him for a long time. I'm a black woman, man. I've been following him for a long time. I've not ever gotten any iota of racist or behavior, or microaggressive behavior from him or anything he posts. That said, he posts some recent things about iShowSpeed. Some recent news, like for example, iShowSpeed, like he put like a fucking, he put off like a firework on like 4th of July. He put off a firework in his bedroom, and it like made it so he had to call a fire department. It was stupid, and he streamed it. And Jake Lucky put that on Twitter. He put it on blast on Twitter, and then iShowSpeed like comments on his post, like kind of coming after him, and then his whole community proceeding to like descend on Jake Lucky, and iShowSpeed let it happen. He knew what was happening. He knew his community was harassing the hell out of Jake Lucky, and he let it happen. That kind of negligence, that kind of turning the other way, is just as bad. It's passively bad, but it's just as bad. You're letting your community attack another person, you know, and you know it's happening, and you have the power to stop it, and you're not stopping it. That's fucked up. It's wrong. It's wrong to do that, you know. So, and then finally, praising and defending toxic streamers, willfully ignoring the harm they've done. This is something that I've seen even the nicest streamers, the streamers I respect. I see a lot of people fucking do this. When a streamer that they've associated themselves with, whether it's in their own, whether it's another person in their agency or another just big streamer, when they do something fucked up and people call them out for it, all of these streamers will come flocking to their back saying, this person's the nicest person I've ever met. He'd never do anything like that, blah, 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 blah. And I'm sure in their mind, they're thinking they're standing up for, you know, their friend, they're standing up for their colleagues, but it's toxic because you're shutting out the voices that are fucking trying to bring attention to a real issue that happened. For example, with Aiden Ross here, when Andrew Tate was getting rightfully flamed last week, rightfully, he deserved it. People like Aiden Ross and another guy, I think his name is Arab or whatever, like whatever his name is, I don't know. I blocked him on Twitter because he was so fucking toxic. They would just come to his aid and like show clips of Tate fucking saying horrible shit. And in their mind, they're thinking, oh, that's just being a top G. That's being a top G. But it's fucking toxic. It's misogynist. It's harmful. You've got thousands and thousands and thousands of women looking that shit on Twitter and making us feel unsafe. Like it's not fucking okay. You know, or even back when the whole thing happened with Draynilla and the queer baiting, like all of these people would just like come, and these are content creators I really respect too. And that's why I was so disappointed to see this. They would come flocking to his aid saying, oh man, he would never do that. That's the nicest person I've ever met. His content's great. And I'm like, all you're doing is silencing the voices that are already marginalized, that are just trying to bring light to an issue that is happening against their community, and you just silence them. You are no longer an ally to that community. You know, that's fucking toxic. What can we do about this? The biggest 3 things that I think we can do about this, as content creators, lead by example. Lead by example. You know, if somebody calls you out and says, hey, you're doing something that I think is harmful, and I don't think you're like that, I don't think that you're that type of person, listen to them. Learn, grow, and then teach others. If you see other people doing the same thing, let them know, educate them, because they straight up might not know. Be humble, you know. If you see someone you respect that's getting flamed a little bit because of something they did, instead of the knee-jerk reaction to go come to their aid and say, no, they're not a bad person. Stop. Think about it. Nobody's saying they're a bad person. They're trying to educate them. Do your friend a favor and tell them to listen. You're not doing them any favors by enabling their bad behavior. You're actively doing them a disservice if you do that, you know, because at the end of the day, that just makes you complicit in their bigotry, you know, and they're not learning either, you know. Call it out when it happens. If you see even a big content creator, even if you're small like me, I'm a small content creator, but I call them out. If I see a big content creator that I really like and I respect, but I see them doing something problematic, I'm going to call them out on it. I'm going to tell them, I really care about you. And that's I really like your content. I really respect you as a content creator. And that's why I'm going to tell you this. I think you need to take a step back here, you know, call them out on it. Because that helps, that makes them better. All feedback is a gift. All criticism is a gift. Another thing, if you get criticism, don't take it personally. And sure as hell, do not use your own marginal status as some sort of excuse to reject criticism, because that is not valid. That is not valid, y'all. So sorry, this was kind of a bit of a heavy topic, but I hope I left it off in a hopeful way. And I hope I gave you guys tools to recognize this toxic behavior when you see it happening. If you see any of the things I mentioned tonight, call them out on it. Educate others. Let them know, because they might not even know that's toxic behavior. They might not even realize it until you explain to them why it's toxic. And that, folks, is Cozy Zooms In. And finally, that is the rest of the show. So this was kind of a longer episode tonight. Thank you all for watching or listening. Next episode's going to be next Wednesday, same time, 7 p.m. Pacific. This episode will be up on all major podcast platforms on Friday morning. I hope you have a lovely evening, and I hope to see you next time. All right, y'all. Bye.